She laughed at my broken heart, so I sued her until she lost everything. Can you imagine pouring your entire life, every last ounce of your stability and hard-won peace, into someone who sees you only as a stepping stone, a convenient resource to drain dry? Can you imagine realizing, years too late, that the love you craved was just a mirage reflecting back your own desperate need? My name is Elena. I'm 32, a marketing manager in a concrete jungle that never sleeps, and this is the story of how my family, especially my sister, Tiffany, broke me down to my very core, then watched me rebuild myself on the ashes of their entitlement. It started subtly, as these things always do, a slow erosion of boundaries that began long before I understood what boundaries even were. I was the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who always had a plan, even if that plan was just to avoid rocking the boat. Tiffany, older by 2 years, was the dazzling comet, streaking across our suburban sky, demanding attention and praise. Our parents, God bless their enabling hearts, fueled her fire with every cheer and every indulgence, while I learned to find my worth in the steady hum of a perfectly organized room or a diligently completed homework assignment. I remember being 6, carefully coloring inside the lines of a unicorn drawing, while Tiffany, then 8, was already charming Dad into buying her an ice cream cone she hadn't earned, just because she'd asked so nicely. My chest would tighten then, a familiar clench, knowing my perfect unicorn would earn a polite nod, while her saccharine smile got the treat. It was the first of a million micro-traumas, little lessons absorbed deeply into my bones. Being good wasn't enough. Being useful, being quiet, being reliable. That was my role. Fast forward to my 20s. I'd worked my ass off through college, paying my own way with scholarships and 2 part-time jobs, while Tiffany bounced from one expensive fashion school to another, each tuition bill magically appearing on Mom and Dad's credit cards. I landed a decent entry-level gig right out of graduation, then clawed my way up the ladder in a competitive advertising firm in downtown Chicago. My tiny studio apartment felt like a palace compared to the sprawling, perpetually in-between living situations Tiffany seemed to gravitate towards. My savings account, growing steadily, was my secret comfort, my quiet rebellion against the chaos I'd grown up in. Every dollar was a brick in a wall I was building, a fortress against the unpredictable whims of my family. Then came the call. Tiffany, with that saccharine voice that still made a chill run down my spine, talking about her latest entrepreneurial venture. It was a boutique, sustainable, artisanal, ethically sourced fashion, she gushed like she'd invented altruism. My stomach twisted. Tiffany's track record for finishing anything, let alone running a business, was non-existent. My mouth said, "Oh, that sounds interesting," but my chest felt tight, the old dread of cold not forming. She needed seed money, of course. Not much, she insisted, just a small, temporary loan to get the inventory rolling. "It's such a great investment, Elena," she'd purred. "You're so smart with money, you'll see the potential." She was playing my song, the one about me being smart and responsible. I wanted to scream, to hang up, but the familiar fawn response kicked in. My throat felt dry. "How much?" I asked, hating the tremor in my voice. She wanted $30,000. $30,000. My emergency fund, my down payment savings. My breath hitched. My entire body wanted to recoil, but her voice was a siren, promising a future where we were partners, where I was finally seen as more than just the silent, sensible sister. She painted a picture of us, 2 sisters, successful, strong, laughing over champagne in her gorgeous boutique. It was the acceptance I'd been starved of my entire life, dangled just out of reach. My parents, of course, were already on board, practically begging me to support my brilliant sister's dream. "She just needs a little push, Elena," Dad had said. "You know how creative she is. You're so good with finances, you can keep an eye on things." Keep an eye on things. That was my role. Always. And for a fleeting moment, I believed them. I believed I could finally be the hero. I remember staring at my online banking app, my finger hovering over the transfer button, the cursor blinking like a judgmental eye. My heart was pounding, a frantic drum against my ribs. $30,000. It was a terrifying leap into the unknown, a violation of my own carefully constructed safety net. But Tiffany had promised a return, an easy 10% interest, and a quick repayment. More importantly, she'd promised family, a deeper bond, a shared success. The thought of finally being seen as an equal, not just the reliable ATM, was intoxicating. I could almost taste it. So, against every instinct, Every warning bell screaming in my head, I clicked confirm. My stomach dropped, but a flicker of hope, however fragile, ignited. Maybe this time, it would be different. Maybe this time, she'd really change. The boutique opened in a trendy neighborhood, all exposed brick and minimalist chic. It was genuinely beautiful. For a few months, I was almost giddy. I'd visit, offer marketing advice, which was usually ignored, and even worked a few shifts on weekends, trying to help out. Tiffany was in her element, flitting around, air-kissing customers, talking about her vision. My parents were beaming, telling everyone how supportive I was. I got a little piece of that reflected glory, a fleeting warmth that made me think, see? This is what family is supposed to be. My first interest payment came in, right on time. A small check, but it was proof. Proof that I wasn't a fool. Proof that this was working. My guard started to lower just a little. Then the payments stopped. Not all at once, but slowly. First a week late, then two, then a flimsy excuse about cash flow issues and seasonal dips. Tiffany's voice on the phone became clipped, defensive. My chest began to ache again, a familiar dull throb. I'd email, I'd call, and mostly I'd get radio silence or a quick, dismissive, "I'm swamped, Elena. You know how it is." The boutique started looking a little less pristine, the inventory a little thinner. I saw her posting on Instagram from lavish vacations, new designer bags slung over her arm. My hands trembled as I scrolled through her feed, a cold wave washing over me. All my logical alarms were blaring, but the emotional part of me, the part that still wanted her approval, was terrified to confront her. I tried talking to our parents. "Mom, Dad, Tiffany isn't paying me back. I'm worried about my money." Their reaction was a masterclass in deflection and gaslighting. "Oh, Elena, don't be so dramatic," Mom sighed. "She's just getting started. You know how hard it is to run a business." Dad added, "You have a good job, Elena. Tiffany needs this more than you do. Can't you just give her a little more time? A little more time." My money wasn't just money. It was my security, my future, my years of hard work. To them, it was just extra pocket change I could afford to lose for Tiffany's dream. The invisible weight on my shoulders grew heavier, suffocating me. I felt like I was drowning in their casual disregard, my family's emotional debt accruing faster than any interest. I remember one afternoon, walking past her boutique during my lunch break. Through the window, I saw Tiffany laughing, holding court with a group of friends, sipping what looked like expensive champagne. My heart pounded, not from anger yet, but from a deep, aching humiliation. I stopped dead in my tracks, frozen on the sidewalk. She looked up, met my eyes for a split second, and then her gaze slid right past me, like I was just another shadow on the wall. She didn't acknowledge me, didn't wave, didn't even offer a faint, apologetic smile. It was like I was invisible, a ghost haunting her success built on my sacrifice. My breath caught in my throat, a physical constriction. The truth hit me with the force of a physical blow. She wasn't just late with payments, she didn't care. My money, my trust, meant nothing. That night, I didn't sleep. I paced my tiny apartment, the city lights a blurry backdrop to my spiraling thoughts. Self-doubt gnawed at me. Was I too demanding? Was I selfish for wanting my money back? Tiffany was family, after all. But then the anger started to simmer, a slow, hot burn beneath my skin. I had worked for every single dollar, denied myself luxuries, saved diligently while she lived a life of casual extravagance. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the fundamental disrespect, the blatant betrayal of my trust, the dismissal of my hard work and responsible nature. Every childhood memory of her getting everything and me getting nothing flooded back, a torrent of old wounds resurfacing. The scapegoat versus golden child dynamic, amplified and weaponized. I decided to try one more time, directly. I called her, my voice surprisingly steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Tiffany, we need to talk about the loan. It's been 6 months, and I haven't seen a payment." There was a long pause, then a sigh, theatrical and impatient. "Elena, I told you things are tight. You're being so uptight about this." Uptight. I gripped my phone tighter, my knuckles turning white. "This isn't about being uptight, Tiff. This is about $30,000 of my savings. My future." She snorted. "Your future? Please. You're a marketing manager. You make good money. I'm building an empire here. You should be grateful you even got to be a part of it." Grateful. The word hung in the air, dripping with condescension. That's when it clicked. It wasn't just desperation on her part, it was pure, unadulterated entitlement, mixed with a chilling dash of resentment. The mid-story twist, right there, hitting me square in the face. She didn't want to pay me back because she didn't think she had to. She saw my money as hers, or at least as something I owed her, for the privilege of being her sister. My financial stability, which I'd so carefully cultivated, wasn't a source of pride for her. It was a resource to be exploited, a painful reminder of my own practical success in contrast to her dazzling, but ultimately fragile ventures. She resented my ability to earn and save, viewing it as a buffer she could always fall back on. My very existence, my quiet competence, was a constant, unspoken judgment against her performative grandiosity. She felt entitled to leverage my hard work to sustain her lavish facade. The thought made my stomach churn, a sickening mix of anger and profound sadness. My chest felt hollow, like a gaping wound had just been torn open. The next few months were a blur of escalating conflict. I sent official letters, drafted by a lawyer friend, demanding repayment. Tiffany's responses were either furious, tearful, or completely silent. She started telling our extended family that I was trying to ruin her business, that I was heartless and greedy. The phone calls from aunts and cousins started, veiled accusations, pleas for me to be reasonable. "She's your sister, Elena. Family is everything," they'd chime. My own parents, instead of defending me, echoed these sentiments, subtly pressuring me to back down. "Can't you just write it off, honey? It's not worth destroying the family over," Mom had pleaded, her voice laced with guilt, making me feel like the villain. My world, already fracturing, began to splinter. The first gaslighting attempt happened over a particularly brutal FaceTime call. "You said it was an investment, Elena," Tiffany claimed, her eyes wide and innocent. "You told me you understood the risks. We talked about it like partners." My jaw dropped. We had explicitly discussed it as a loan with interest, with a repayment schedule. "No, Tiffany, we had a written agreement. I loaned you the money," I insisted, my voice rising. "Oh, that old thing," she scoffed. "That was just for formality. You know how Mom and Dad hate messy finances. We both knew what it was really about. You wanted to be involved, and this was your way in." My mind reeled. She was rewriting history, trying to make me doubt my own memory, my own sanity. My hands started to shake, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I was trapped in her twisted reality, and I felt utterly alone. The gaslighting continued. She would call me, sometimes crying, sometimes raging, accusing me of never supporting her dreams, of always being jealous. She even went as far as to tell mutual friends that I was emotionally unstable, that I was harassing her because of some imagined slight, not a very real, very large debt. I watched my social circle shrink, people I'd known for years suddenly distant, their eyes holding a mixture of pity and judgment. It was a public and social destruction attempt, disguised as concern for my mental health. The humiliation was crushing. I would walk into my office building, my head down, feeling everyone's eyes on me, even though logically I knew they couldn't possibly know. The shame made my face burn. I started having panic attacks in the mornings, my chest tight, my breathing shallow, the distinct feeling of dread clinging to me like a shroud. One particularly low point, I found myself crouched in my bathroom, hugging my knees, the cold tile pressing against my cheek. I hadn't eaten properly in days. My phone buzzed with another message from my mother, essentially begging me to drop the issue for the sake of the family. My entire body was vibrating with suppressed emotion, fear, anger, guilt, exhaustion. I saw my reflection in the dark screen of my phone, gaunt and shadowed. And then a memory, sharp and vivid, pierced through the fog. I was 10, Tiffany had broken Mom's prized porcelain vase, and I, the responsible one, had taken the blame to spare her a grounding. Mom had sighed. "Elena, you're always so good." Tiffany had hugged me, whispered thanks, and then went back to playing, not a shred of guilt. That memory, that feeling of being used and then quickly forgotten, was the exact same ache I felt now. It was a pattern, a lifelong wound, and it was finally too much. I stood up slowly. My legs felt shaky, but something had shifted. The endless fawning, the constant avoidance of conflict, the years of internalizing their narratives, it all crumbled in that moment. I looked at my reflection again, but this time, I saw defiance. I wasn't just Elena, the responsible one. I was Elena, the survivor. My family had pushed me to the edge, tried to erase my worth, but they hadn't broken my spirit entirely. Not yet. I knew then, with a fierce, quiet certainty, that I couldn't back down. This wasn't just about the money. It was about reclaiming myself. It was about proving to myself that I mattered, that my boundaries were sacred, and that my voice deserved to be heard. I decided to take her to court. The decision felt heavy, terrifying, but also liberating. My chest, which had been tight for months, finally eased, just a millimeter. The first meeting with a legal aid attorney felt surreal. Her name was Sarah, a no-nonsense woman with kind eyes. I laid out everything: the loan agreement, the texts, the bank statements, the screenshots of Tiffany's lavish lifestyle. As I spoke, detailing the years of emotional manipulation, the constant put-downs, the way my family had dismissed my hard work, my voice cracked, but I kept going. Sarah listened patiently, occasionally taking notes. "This isn't just about a debt, is it, Elena?" she asked, her gaze piercing. I shook my head, a tear escaping. "It's about everything." She nodded. "We'll build a case. It's going to be ugly, but we can do this." Her words, simple and direct, were a lifeline. The legal process was a brutal slog, a psychological war fought with paper and bureaucracy. Tiffany refused to engage, ignored court summons, and generally acted like the entire thing was beneath her. My parents tried to intervene again, sending me long, tearful emails about the damage I was doing to the family. I started screening their calls, the guilt a dull ache, but the resolve to protect myself now stronger. I finally understood that protecting myself was protecting my future family, my own peace. Discovery was humiliating. I had to bear my financial life, my communications, my painful history, all for strangers to dissect. Every time a new document was requested, every time Sarah asked me a difficult question about my past with Tiffany, a fresh wave of nausea would roll over me. But I pushed through, remembering the cold indifference in Tiffany's eyes, the casual way she'd dismissed my existence. Tiffany's defense, when it finally materialized through her expensive, flashy lawyer, was exactly what I expected. I was jealous, I was unstable, I had gifted her the money, and then had a change of heart. They tried to paint me as the villain, the cold-hearted sister trying to destroy her entrepreneurial sibling. The accusation of being jealous particularly stung. I had spent my life cleaning up her messes, cheering her on from the sidelines, and now my ambition, my success, was being twisted into a character flaw. It made my blood run cold. They used snippets of old texts taken out of context to try and show my controlling nature. It was like living through my childhood again, except this time, the stakes were much, much higher. The courtroom itself was a sterile, unforgiving space in the Chicago courthouse, all polished wood and hushed tones. I remember the smell of old paper and anxiety. My heart was a frantic bird trapped in my ribcage. When Tiffany finally showed up, she looked pristine, perfectly coiffed, her eyes betraying not an ounce of remorse, only a simmering contempt. Our parents sat behind her, their faces a mask of strained disapproval, unable to meet my gaze. My hands were clammy, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. This was it, the culmination of a lifetime of being overlooked, of being the responsible one, of absorbing their entitlement. The testimony was excruciating. I recounted everything, my voice wavering at times, but holding steady. I laid bare the emotional manipulation, the gaslighting, the years of silent suffering. Sarah, my lawyer, presented the documented proof. The loan agreement, the bank statements showing the transfer, the lack of repayment, the screenshots of Tiffany's luxury spending while claiming insolvency. When it was Tiffany's turn to testify, she spun a narrative of artistic struggle, of my well-meaning but ultimately misguided interference, of my overbearing nature. She cried on cue, playing the victim, and for a terrifying moment, I thought the judge might actually believe her. My stomach dropped, a dizzying sense of despair washing over me. Then came the final twist, the brutal emotional checkmate that Sarah had meticulously set up. During cross-examination, Sarah presented a series of texts and emails between Tiffany and her then-boyfriend, acquired through subpoena. In them, Tiffany openly boasted about how she'd convinced Elena to hand over her savings, calling me such a suck-up and easy to manipulate. One particularly damning text read, "Elena's so predictable. Just tell her it's for family, and she'll open her wallet. She probably thinks this will finally make Mom and Dad proud of her." The words echoed in the silent courtroom, brutal and stark. My breath caught in my throat, a gasp held captive. It was as if a physical fist had slammed into my chest, knocking the air out of my lungs. My entire life, my childhood wound, my desperate yearning for acceptance, it was all laid bare, exposed and mocked in her own words. It was the ultimate betrayal, the confirmation that every single act of generosity, every sacrifice, every yearning for connection had been seen as weakness, as a pathetic attempt to buy love. My face burned with a shame so intense I thought I might physically melt. But then, as the initial shock receded, something else rose in its place. A cold, clear fury. The judge's eyes, previously impassive, narrowed. Tiffany's face, which had been defiant moments before, went utterly pale. Her expensive lawyer suddenly looked very uncomfortable. The judge's voice, calm and measured, cut through the silence. Ms. Miller, based on the evidence presented, it is clear that Ms. Peterson entered into a binding loan agreement with her sister, Ms. Elena Peterson. The documented communications demonstrate a clear intention to defraud and manipulate. The court finds in favor of Ms. Elena Peterson. He ordered Tiffany to repay the full amount, with interest plus significant legal fees. And then the final crushing blow. Due to the blatant attempt at fraud and evasion, the judge also ordered a lien on Tiffany's boutique and personal assets to ensure repayment, effectively forcing her to sell or face severe penalties. It was a complete legal destruction. My hands, which had been clenched so tightly they ached, slowly relaxed. Walking out of that courthouse, the harsh Chicago sun felt different, brighter somehow. The air, crisp and biting, filled my lungs in a way it hadn't in years. I didn't feel triumphant or celebratory, not yet. I felt utterly hollowed out, drained. But underneath the exhaustion, a tiny ember of something new flickered. It was the quiet satisfaction of justice served, yes, but more importantly, it was the feeling of having defended myself, truly and irrevocably, for the very first time. I had broken the lifelong pattern. Tiffany lost everything she claimed to be building. Her boutique was sold, her carefully curated image shattered. Our parents, finally forced to confront the harsh reality, were left with the consequences of their enablement, no longer able to ignore the wreckage Tiffany left in her wake. They tried to reconcile, but the wound was too deep, the trust too broken. I finally understood that sometimes, letting go isn't giving up, it's protecting your own peace. The inheritance crisis I had feared my entire life, the constant fear of being left out, of being seen as less than, had been replaced by a different truth. What truly belonged to me was my self-respect, my autonomy, and my hard-earned security. It's been almost a year since the ruling. The money has been repaid, slowly but surely. It's not just money, it's an emotional currency, a tangible representation of my reclaimed worth. My savings account is whole again, but more importantly, my sense of self is intact, stronger than ever. The constant clench in my chest is gone. The little girl who tried to earn love by being useful has finally realized that she is worthy, simply because she exists. The psychological wound of being the overlooked, responsible one, forever craving external validation, has finally begun to heal. I don't flinch when my phone rings anymore. I don't feel guilty for saying no. I've learned that choosing myself isn't selfish, it's essential. I've come so far from that girl who would take the blame to save her sister, from the woman who handed over her security for a glimmer of family approval. I've reclaimed my voice, my boundaries, and my peace. I sometimes catch myself smiling, a genuine, unburdened smile, and it's a beautiful thing. This journey has been incredibly painful, but it has taught me that strength isn't about how much you can endure for others, but how fiercely you can protect yourself. It's about drawing lines, even when those lines cut through the very fabric of what you once called family. Have you ever had to choose between your own well-being and the expectations of those you love? What did you choose? Let me know in the comments below. And if my story resonated with you, consider subscribing. Your support means the world, and it helps me share these raw, honest truths that so many of us need to hear.